Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to North Node Astrology and welcome to Cancer season. All right, so I've done some videos on TikTok about Virgo risings and about how powerful communicators they are and programmers, but I thought I would go ahead and start today with Aries because it's the start of a new season here and we're in Cancer season, so we need to. I think the whole season is definitely about taking care of ourselves and learning about our emotions and how to nurture ourselves, right? Because Cancer is a cardinal sign, as is Aries, and it's another reason why I set this. It's much easier to understand that way. And Cancer and Capricorn are very foundational for each other. You can see that, Cancer down here at the bottom, Capricorn out here on the top in public. Anything that's in the bottom of the chart, right, is the things that we don't necessarily show to others, right? We can show them to others and they do come up, but in other ways, right? When we start something new, that's always our rising sign, right? And in this case, I have set this chart for 0 degrees Aries. This was just a few minutes ago, and I can set it for any time, and I'll rotate it through the video so you guys get an idea of how these various elements affect each other, right? So if there was somebody, and probably somebody was definitely born at this time, let's see, at 12:13, and on the east coast of the United States on the 21st of June, you can see up there in the corner. So they've got Jupiter and the Moon conjunct in their first house in Aries, right? So they are very big personality, right? They've got very large emotions. They wear them on their face, right? They're right on their face. And they've got some damage, right? They're people know that they're hurt, right? That's that Chiron in Aries. They know that. And also with that Mars there, they are going to go after, right? They see people's faces. They see people's, youthfulness and their own youthfulness, right? They're going to go after that also, okay? In their second house, that's ruled by Venus, right? And Venus in the second house, being, the house ruler and, in there, it's a very powerful place for Venus to be, in Taurus. So with the North Node also there, and with Uranus, this person through their life is going to want to make powerful changes, powerful, possibly erratic changes, right? Uranus, in their value system, right? In their subjective reality, in their physical environment. They're also going to probably, and this is something that, I've heard and I've said myself, and I actually believe this, I've seen how this works. With so much technology in our hands every day, Uranus is replaceable with our computers and our phones, right? And our tablets and any other devices that we use, right? So this person definitely values that, and they probably would panic if they left their phone in their car, in their home, if they went out somewhere. There is no way this person would ever go anywhere without their device. Ever. It just wouldn't happen. They would feel like it was part of them, okay? And this can even kind of get into the age of Aquarius here and the large transhumanist movement that's been going on for a number of decades. People and machines, and especially computers, merging together. But I made a video earlier this morning talking about the crystalline nature of the fluid that's in our spine, right? Our spinal fluid, that one of my teachers helped me see and understand this, is that kind of helps what pulls our soul into our body, right? Into this 3D dimension. I mean, we know that crystals are the source of almost all of the technology we use. So, and that pulls in those frequencies. That spinal fluid is a powerful thing, right? And there's electricity rolling through it all the time. So something's going to come in, right? And something's definitely going to be transmitted. And this person would definitely understand that and would feel that North Node there, right? So, moving on to the third house in Gemini, Mercury here makes this person a very powerful communicator. They've got a lot of internal communication. They've got a lot of external communication. They're probably very skilled with their hands, especially with Venus in its home sign of Taurus, which is grounded, right? And feeling good about physical environment. And you also have Gemini here in its home sign of or excuse me, Mercury here in its home sign of Gemini, like being essentially grounded in communication, grounded in self. And Gemini is also the hands. So somebody was probably very skilled with their hands, right? And I'll probably get into that when I get into Sagittarius. Part of fortune, again, it's a transiting thing, but for this case, well, I guess we'll use it for a birth chart. Whenever this person thinks about themselves or is communicating about themselves or is communicating with another or with someone they feel is part of themselves, they definitely get a lot more back at it, right? It doesn't matter about friendships, or it doesn't really matter about what they create or their career or who they trust or anything like that. It's about themselves, right? About their communication. A 0-degree Cancer, in the home, this person is possibly liable to be a homemaker, right? Because everything in their chart is definitely going to be logical to them, right? It's going to go back to that Cancer element, or it's going to go back to probably that Aries element, right? Because there's so many planets there. It's going to be pretty grounded. So today, actually the 21st of June, probably will feel pretty grounded, right? It may feel aggressive, or it may feel like you're trying to pull something from your childhood back. In Cancer, they're at 0 degrees on the IC, which is where we are at home, at sleep, at night, right? Nurturing ourselves in the way that we need to be nurtured versus going out and seeking that, right? That's where a lot of us fall down. We go out and we try to search for something that's going to ground us, that's going to make us feel good, but we have to do that for ourselves, right? We have to fill our own cups before we can fill anybody else's. And if we're running around out in the world with an empty cup rattling around at people, you see how that creates an adverse reaction in other people. If you're chasing after if you're chasing after emotional support or mental support or physical support or financial support, people tend to run away from you, right? But if you create those things in yourself and you are solid, those things will come to you. That's been happening in my life recently. As I balance my inner self, the things that I want are coming to me in a powerful way. So, and here, now that the sun's in Cancer, it's in my home sign. My birthday is in 6 days. I've got some big shifts going on in my life, and I know this. I've been working really hard for this last year. So, moving forward. With Lilith here also in Cancer, this person, or even us as a collective, right? This is another use for this 0 degrees Aries chart. This is a collective reading, right? That Lilith there in Cancer, we want to nurture, but we want to nurture in our way. Don't you dare tell me how to nurture. I'm going to do it, right? It's either going to be, don't nurture me, I got this, I'm on my own, I can do this on my own, or it can be, completely falling apart. And Lilith can go in both directions depending on who you're dealing with, right? So if this Cancer person is dealing with a Leo, right, with this, which is also a house ruled by the sun, right? They might think that person, oh, well, this Leo person is definitely gonna nurture me. Well, maybe not, depending on how that Leo person interacts with that Cancer person. It might be, it might go well and it might not. It might take some time for it to either go well or not. And it all depends on the individuals and the decisions they've made in their life, and about how they, use the elements of themselves and their chart to move beyond that, right? To use the full elements of, say, that Aries moon in the first house, those powerful emotions. Obviously, you can see those, that line, that square there, almost a square going there to that sun, from the moon to the sun, right? So this line right here, let me pull up the degrees here, you guys can see that, so we know what angles we're talking about here, right? And a square is a 90-degree angle. So the moon being at 6 degrees there with Jupiter is only 6 degrees off of a square. And with the moon being so close and Jupiter being so big, you could definitely still feel that square. Now it's moving off, as Jupiter is moving forward, but the sun's moving faster, right? As far as our perspective is concerned. So we can keep rolling on there. In the 5th house, right, that goes back to that Cancer. So back to that Cancer sun at 0 degrees. anything we create today is definitely going to be about our inner self, or anything this person creates is going to be about their inner self, how they think about themselves, or, but much more so, because it's Cancer, how they feel about themselves. Are they nurturing themselves? Are they taking care of themselves? Do they have a home that is grounded? Okay, excuse the disjoint there. I got a phone call and it stopped the video. So we were talking about the moon here, and I wanted to move into the sixth house. I guess I had talked for quite a while. So the sixth house there in Virgo is ruled by that Mercury and Gemini, and there's fast changes, right? So, and I think I might have already talked about this. You know, the Mercury there at 8 degrees, and this vertex at 6, and also the Jupiter and the Moon at 6 degrees, right? So there's a lot of motion there. There's a lot of action there at that 6 and 8 degree mark, especially at that 6 degree mark. So this person could actually, and even today, this is the chart for today, so we could actually trigger ourselves through our communication, our emotions, and how we talk to ourselves. But it's much more about that communication, right? Because that Mercury's moving fast, right? It's the moon. It already hit that Jupiter and made those big emotions. I've had some big things go on already today. You know, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing this video, right? So let's continue on with the Libra here. So 7th house here, ruled by that Venus there, right, at 28 Taurus, and that be willing to make those changes. Also, this Venus here is making a 120 degree angle to Pluto, and retrograde Pluto there, right? So this Venus knows that there is a possibility for change in public life or career, trust with people in their career, right? They know that in order to move forward, and these things kind of chain together, right? That sometimes even if they feel good about the career, sometimes it can go south, or they're like, you know what, I feel good, but I'm scared. Well, actually, I feel good about this, right? So there's that influence from Pluto. But let's go back to Libra here, right? So it's ruling that Libra, and that's really all that's going on there, right? So people have asked me, and even when I first started doing astrology, I was worried about empty houses, right? But they're technically not empty, because they all still have a ruler. Like this Libra, it is ruled by Venus, right? There's a lot going on here in Taurus. So this Venus has aspects that are going from Neptune, and she's also got Saturn going on, and Pluto going on there. So there is motion in this house, right? There's motion in Libra. There's motion in that Virgo and that house of Leo, okay? Because there's aspects going towards that Sun and that Mercury and that Venus. So even though there's no house, there's no planet in that house, there is still motion in the house. Does that make sense? Okay. And then we move on to Scorpio, into, you know, topics about rebirth and death and depth and trust and, you know, finances, you know, things that create an emotional response, right? Not emotions themselves, but things with other people that create an emotional response, okay? And with the South Node here, this person knows that they have to anchor here so that they can have a valuable, nice life that in a set of values that works for them, right? This person could, and again, all of us, you know, the South Node in Scorpio here, we could fall into things where, oh, I do trust this person, or, you know, but are they vetted? Did you actually go through the process of like, why do I trust this person? Have they done things to gain my trust? Have they done things to erode my trust? What are those things? Or is this person using the power of Pluto in Capricorn, or the energy from Mars in Aries, to control me? Are they doing that? Am I doing that to other people? Right? Because, you know, Scorpio is ruled by Mars and Pluto, right? And with the South Node here, there's an anchoring point there. But we need to know that these are points of trust, right? We need to know these things and not, well, I just feel, right? And as a Cancer, that is rough for me. And with the Sun in Cancer, that may be a little rough for all of us right now, right? But also don't fall into, oh, well, there's going to be money. I'll gamble and I'll be fine, right? Because Scorpio rules gambling, right? The winnings is something else. But the gambling in Scorpio, are you willing to put everything on the line for a gamble? Sometimes it can work out for you, other times not. But with a North Node and Venus in Taurus with Uranus there, even something that's in your hand could be a little squirrely, right? So a gamble, probably not the greatest idea unless it's something that you trust hands down. Unless it's something that has shown you that you can trust it, right? And also don't fall into things of sexual intensity, because that can also do it. People that can, there's a portion of Scorpio that's about manipulation, right? Scorpios know things about people and things and events ahead of time, or even things that have occurred in the past. They can look at you and go, didn't you such and such and this and that? And they'll read you. They can. Scorpios are powerful readers, right? They just know things, right? Because they have the power of Pluto, and Pluto moves so slow, and everybody moves around him, and everybody talks to him, and they tell him so much in their orbits, right? Mercury moves around the sun every 88 days, even though not for us, right? But every time Mercury moves around, it talks to Pluto, boop, and he gives him a little piece of information. And every time the moon moves around, boop, gives Pluto a little piece of information. Pluto is the keeper of secrets, right? That's the secretive. That's the dark side of Scorpio. And you see the way the world is going, as that Pluto is retrograding back, there are secrets in the world being revealed, right? Especially with that Mercury and Gemini, and they are talking, right? There is a beneficial, actually it's not, but it was like when it was retrograde, it was back here at 28 with Venus. Actually, Venus is farther back, but when Mercury was farther back, there was communication there, and now Mercury's moving forward, and now Pluto's talking to Venus, like, hey, I talked to Mercury, how do you feel about it? All right, and the moon was back there in Capricorn a couple of weeks ago, and it, anyway, those things update. So, moving to Sagittarius, my rising sign, and this is about Jupiter, right? The Jupiter in Aries is expanding us in a very powerful, impulsive, aggressive, childlike kind of way. And when we want to expand, that's how we're doing it. And especially with the moon there today, especially with the moon just in Aries in general, and definitely on that Jupiter, there's a lot of emotion about it, right? There's a lot of emotion about travel, or about things that are foreign, or about languages, or about institutions of higher learning. Actually, the institutions themselves is Capricorn, and we can obviously get there. So you can see how the emotion of the day, right? The moon and the Jupiter interacting in Aries, it fills in these blank spaces. They're not really blank. They don't have any internal motion. There's lots of external motion, right? So now we move on to our 10th house collectively in Capricorn, ruled by that Saturn in Aquarius, retrograde, right? He is slowing down. He's going back. He is redressing. He's like, hey, that work that you were doing, is it working? That thing that you kind of bounced through that was okay at the time, how about you slow down and you go back and you pay attention to all the things that you were looking at, the details, right? Because that's what I need. Saturn wants long-term plans, right? And all of us are doing that with our collective, consciousness. Saturn is going, are you guys doing the work? Are you? And even, his realm is both of these signs, Capricorn and Aquarius. And in Aquarius, he's still building Capricorn, right? He's still building it. He's building it in a new way now, right? He's already moving forward. Saturn doesn't ever want to move. He never moves backwards. He always moves forwards, always. Even when he's in retrograde motion, he's moving forwards, because he's making sure that everything's okay. before he goes, like, he gets to a point, let's stop, let's look at it, okay, everything's cool, let's move forward, let's integrate all these things that we may have found in the past, and let's go forward. Always what a retrograde does. And now onto, all of us, right? This is all of us in our collective consciousness, right? I feel that if we are so close to the age of Aquarius, it doesn't even matter that we're not anymore, right? The age of Pisces is over, and I'm actually going to talk about that once I move on from here. But so we got Uranus and Taurus here, influencing that Saturn and Aquarius. So both of them are Saturn's in his rulership, right? In Aquarius, he wants to be there. Uranus does not want to be in Taurus. He wants to be somewhere else, right? But he can inject value. He can inject values, and you guys can see the splintering of all of these peoples all over the place, right? Even in the spiritual community, even the astrological community, on the East Coast or the West Coast, or these astrologers that were taught by this one, or those, you see the divisions, but at the same time, all of us are still moving in tandem. We're still moving in parallel with each other. And we do have our own values, and we're willing to make those radical changes, right, through Uranus. But we're still together here. We're still on the same planet together. We're still all human beings, and we're all trying to move forward in a new way. And in order to do that, we do have to recombine. We did have to split up. So the split up that we're doing right now is necessary. We have to do this, so that we find our truer selves, so that we can recombine, and so that we're stronger, right? A chain is a very Aquarian thing, right? All of the links do look similar. They're not exactly alike, but they all form the chain. And without any of the links, the chain is just a link, right? That's what we are. We're all linked together. We're all tied together. And Uranus is telling us, hey, do you value this? Do you feel good about the collective? Do you feel good about your individual link? Do you feel good about where you are in the chain? Right? And Saturn is asking you, are you connected? Are you moving forward? Are you getting this stuff done? Are you solid? Is your foundation in Capricorn good enough that you can move forward? Right? And then Pisces, ruled by Neptune, which is, in his at home here at 25 degrees, and Jupiter there in Aries, right? We had that Jupiter-Neptune conjunction several months ago, and that opened up a lot of people's minds, right? A lot of people had to let some things go. But, all that energy that was in Pisces, and then it all moved into Aries, and then some of it slid into Taurus, and then, then we had the retrograde and stuff. And we're going to have them more as they continue, right? So Neptune's going to retrograde on the 28th of June. And when he does, that is going to kind of yank the veil back a little bit, and we're going to see what's been going on. Those sacrifices that you were willing to make just days before that, you're not willing to make them anymore, because it's an empty sacrifice, right? If you're sacrificing yourself for the good of the cause or the good of the group, that's one thing. But just sacrificing an individual for another individual, no, it's not. If that is that other person more important to the cause than you are, that's up to you to decide. That's not for them or somebody else to decide, right? But if you're on your mission, sacrificing yourself for somebody else, nope. That's not what Pisces is about, right? You have to draw those boundaries. And with Jupiter meeting with the moon in Aries, that's that inflated and sometimes probably overinflated sense of self that we may need right now. We might need to know that our identity, who we project as in these emotional expansive ways, is important, right? We can't do the mission if we're not here to do it. If we sacrifice everything, then what was the point of the mission, right? Like, when you cut a cake, the entire cake doesn't end up on the plates. Some of the cake ends up on the knife. And that's exactly what this Jupiter and moon conjunction here in Aries. Some of the cake ends up on the knife. Some of it's lost. It's okay, right? Because we are dividing it up. Right. So to move backwards a little bit and start talking about the age of Pisces, right? The fish, right? Which was the age of, I think most people can agree, the Abrahamic religions of the world, right? Catholicism and Islam are the main ones, right? Most other religions in the world are based off of that. And there's Eastern religions or different philosophies about that, but as far as Western culture is concerned, and that's obviously, my foundation here. I grew up in a Protestant Protestant churches, which was off of the split off of the Catholic Church. Won't go into that, but we went from an age of intense spirituality, right? Jupiter, like it was an expansion, right? Sagittarius, and Neptune in Pisces is the divine, is the fogginess, is the, are you on the pulse of the universe, of the divinity, right? But there's not many details there, right? You can have a been there, done that, and there's a mysticism to it, right? That's what the whole thing about Pisces and Neptune is, mysticism. Now Jupiter just wants expansion. He's going to expand anything. And we go from Neptune and Jupiter to Saturn and Uranus, right? Because the ages move backwards, precession of the equinoxes, right? The wobble of the earth, going through the sky. We're, moving into hard differences, because you can kind of feel the line there, right? Those of us who are old enough can feel the difference between the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s and where we are now. There is a definite, thing happening that's new, because I felt for a long time that things were boring, so to speak, even though there was a lot of war and death and, there was a lot of cool stuff going on too, but there was a lot of weirdness, right? So now we've got Saturn and we've got Uranus, we've got the Lord of Karma and the Lord of Radical Change. But before, it was just the paying homage to the divine and the expansion, right? But now we're going back and we're looking at the control systems. We're looking at a new way to move forward, by stepping backwards. Because sometimes you have to do that. Consider humanity, or the way that the earth wobbles, as a continual retrograde motion, right? We're always going, we're going backwards, we're going backwards in a new way, right? The planets continue to roll in one direction and we're going another. So let me rotate the chart real quick, right before I finish up here, and I'm gonna roll this to Placidus, which is the typical chart. Okay, so you can see the difference between that 0 Aries chart and this chart here now, right? So before, it was the collective chart, Aries, right? But now, when I ran this chart, earlier today, Virgo rising, right? I think that's kind of funny, because that's kind of what I've been talking about lately. So in that moment, to an extent, we were all a bit of a Virgo rising, and we were, and I've been talking about, the collective, creating ourselves as a collective in an emotional way, in a new way, in a public way, Capricorn, right? And having a philosophy of communication and moving towards, things that are going to expand us, and as long as we feel good about it. But don't get trapped in our minds about things that we're hiding or others are suppressing, right? So you can see how these things rotate, all right? This person, would be a definite communicator, right? The other one would be as well, but this one is much more focused on the mission, right? Virgo, on purity, on, and their relationships would be quite a bit more foggy than that Aries rising. I've heard Aries people say, it is what it is, right? This Virgo person would not say that. because their relationships might be foggy, but they also want to make sure they're divine. And they might have some, might get into some issues with some substances here, because that's also Neptune and Pisces in the 7th house. So that might be their connection to the world, right? They might talk to people and that they associate through those drugs, right? Or through those experiences, through those mystical experiences, because that's the same thing. To Neptune doesn't care how you get there. He's going to get you there anyway. So, when you alter your mind chemistry in one way or another, you're still getting to that Neptune. You're still getting to Pisces. So, thank you for letting me ramble about this. I hope you guys learned something. I always do. And as always, this is North Node Astrology. You guys can find me on TikTok and Facebook, and definitely here on YouTube. Love you guys. Talk to you later.